This is everybody's day. This is everybody's day. Whosoever. Upside down. Now we operate in millions, but we do not affect the temperature of our nations. When we arrive at the burden of these disciples, you understand why I speak with this kind of pain. Because God must do something urgently. Unfortunately, the landscape is constantly being defined by the rhythms that move in darkness. Strange men mount thrones everywhere. They have not troubled the church too much because the church has lost its savor. In the day that we find our strength, we will become victims of persecution. Remember I said last night that the Greek definition of the word witness is not a storyteller. It's one who is convicted even unto death. A martyr. That's who he really is. So I want to encourage you. That's my first encouragement. That you take out time to study the Acts of the Apostles. You will be walking through a manual of witnesses. One that will bring upon your heart a lot of pain. One that will cause you to begin to seek alignment in prayer. Your prayer points will change. Because you understand what power means. You also understand the purpose of power. You understand why Jesus saved you. Because the Acts of the Apostles was an expression of the full import of redemption. What does God do to a man when he comes into a man? The Acts of the Apostles will reveal that in clear terms to us. That's where the manual is. That's where the church was most vibrant. That's where the church was most persecuted. That's where the church was most troubling to the territory. And I trust Jesus that as we come into the new year, these motions will begin to define our existence. Right. So, there was a first letter that he wrote. So the format there is just first. There was a first letter that he wrote on to his friend Theophilus. And the content of the letter was to give narrative to all that Jesus began both to do and to teach. And that's a good place to begin to speak about the destiny of a witness. In Hebrews chapter 11, the Bible introduces Jesus. Hebrews chapter 12 rather. The Bible introduces Jesus to us in the second verse by a unique nomenclature. Looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. It means if you take an instantaneous definition of your life as a witness, your life is supposed to express in two major areas. It's supposed to express in doings and express in teachings. Is somebody with me tonight? Now, what you do and what you teach is not designed to be expressed as a pioneer. You are supposed to do and teach what Jesus began to do and teach, because he is the author and the finisher. Meaning that the life of a witness operates a circle that begins with the Christ and ends with the Christ. So you could actually just take a compass and judge how your life is going. That if your life continues to travel in a straight line, will it end in the Christ? In case it ends outside him, it means that you have veered off the path of a true witness. That's the first thing. The second thing we see in that first verse, according to the lines, the things that Jesus began to do and to teach, is that every witness is apportioned a doing expression and a teaching expression. However, one precedes the other. You do not have the legitimate rights to teach what you have not done. The average teacher of scriptures now goes to read something or goes to listen to something, and when he's listening to a sermon, he takes a few notes and he comes to tell people something. in the bid to take them into a dimension of reality that he has never entered before. You can't teach us how to fast if you do not have a track record with fasting. Are you with me? You cannot. You may attempt it, but if there's someone else in the building who has been fasting, the person will be able to pick out holes. I've heard people say to me, I fasted for 10 days and I didn't hear anything. That's too weak a length of fast. Yes, 10 days is short. When I was in 100 level, and I say this by a supply of grace, because long fast is not powered by will, it's powered by grace. If he invites you that long, he gives you the desire to stay away from food. Life in the spirit is simple. God doesn't command you to do anything he will not give you grace for. So one of the ways I pick error in hearing is when I find out that God is not involved in what I think he called me to do. I was doing my house chores. I was staying with my aunt in my first year in the university. And the Lord said to me, you will be a teacher of the Bible. Since I was in my first year, I felt that the best thing to do was to get out of school and go to a seminary. Would that not be better? Any engineering student here? Engineering. Okay. What engineering? Electrical? Petroleum. Okay. So, civil engineering. Okay. So, from basic calculus, first year, to engineering mathematics, and yes, and all of those very strange, all of those strange theorems that you need to cram, Newton-Raphson, the Jacobian theorem, and I really don't know what those who created those theorems had in mind. It was as though I really don't know if they were solving problems or they were creators, you know. It looks as if they were more intentional about creating a problem. So, if my destiny was to teach scriptures, spending 5 years, and I don't know if schools go on strike here, but it used to be very common in our nation. We hope it won't be common again. You know, so you could be in school for 5 years. I spent 7 years plus reading a 5-year course. It would have been better to go to seminary and get a bachelor or a master's in theology and begin to teach. Now, the seminary experience is good. So if you are in the seminary, it's good. But find Christ. Because it's possible to know the book and not know the author. I've seen that too many times. That you understand the Greek and the Hebrew, forgetting that what was spoken was spirit and life. So when you get the theological knowledge, make sure that you capture those ones too. It's very important. Wicked spirits don't understand Greek. Yes. That's why even professors are afflicted. Are you with me? Yes. So I've seen professors beat their wives before. That's things that farmers will not do. It means when you come into that spiritual environment and spirits begin to manipulate men, education is not an advantage. Now. So the Lord said to me, so I said, I'll abort school. He said, no, go to school. But he began to show me from Isaiah chapter 58 how that there are feedbacks when a man begins to fast. One of them is that your health will break forth speedily. So there is a natural healing effect when you stay on a fast. Medical people will be able to explain that. But it also says that your light will break forth as the noonday. And the word light there is symbolic of revelation. So I was invited to give to the Lord my breakfast. Naturally, for an engineering student, you shouldn't be caught eating around 9 a.m. You're too into the work that you want to eat in the evening. So I began to fast, and for 3 months I was fasting my breakfast. I was taking a walk across the campus one of those days after about 3 months, and the Lord came again, same voice, to tell me, if you continue with breakfast, you will have gray hairs before you can understand scriptures. So I said to him, what shall I do? So he said, give me your lunch. So I said, you can have my... Now, if you follow this protocol, you may not know scriptures. Because the pathways to achieving the ends of God are idiosyncratic. It means they are tailor-made for people. The only motivation you can have from what I'm saying is that you go to God and ask him, show me my pathway. Are you with me? There are no generalized pathways. People go to school learning the keyboard, but I've seen someone before. There's a prophetess in the US called Wanta Bynum. There was a day she came to church and her keyboardist was not around, so there was nobody to play. So she picked a young man from the crowd and told him to sit on the keyboard. Never learned before. Emptied 2 bottles of oil on his head, and he could play well. That's a pathway. Even when it comes to wisdom, I was doing a teaching recently. Wisdom can be learned. If you company with a wise man, you can learn wisdom. Wisdom can also be imparted. Have wisdom, and the person has wisdom. Are you with me? So there are different routes, but you must find your own path. So I gave the Lord my lunch, and by my calculation, if in 3 months I transited from breakfast alone to breakfast at lunch, it was going to be for another 3 months, and I was going to exit. And anytime I open scriptures or begin to study, I would operate with a light that is stronger than the average person. But it didn't come after 3 months. And it didn't come after 3 years. And it didn't come after 10 years. And it didn't come after 12 years. So if I came to your house, no matter how sweet the delicacy was, because I was in pursuit of revelation, I needed to stay not eating. It could be Christmas Day, and on Christmas Day in our nation, people have special meals, right? And my mom would look at me and I would say, no. Not because the food was not desirable, but because I understand that if you begin a process with God, when you abort it, you start again. Yes, there are really no re-entrances. So, we had a meeting after 15 years and 8 months. And I was sitting on the back row there. My spiritual father, the Apostle Arome, was on the front seat. And we were all pacing to pray. And all of a sudden, he looked at me and screamed, there's an open book on your head. So he leaned forward and peeped into the book and said, it's an open Bible. And the Lord said to me, from today, when you see a verse of scripture, you will know what I mean. So if somebody fasts for 10 days and says it doesn't work, it's a lie. You've not fasted long enough. As long as it's not working, you can't teach it. Are you with me? So there may be the burden to teach faith. But the burden to teach faith must first drive you into faith living. When you have gotten results from a life of faith, then you can teach faith. Why? Because in 1 John, don't go there. The attempt of John in 1 John chapter 1 was to bring his hearers into an existing fellowship. So what he did was to create what I call a cycle of witnessing. He said that which was from the beginning that our ears have heard. So it was first a story. And that our eyes have seen, that we have looked upon, and our eyes have, and our hands rather have handled. It was a story that became a vision, that became sustained vision, and then became an experience. It is that same thing that we bring to you And the purpose is so that you may have the same fellowship with us. So if it is not currently your experience, you do not have the license to teach it, because you'll be bringing forth false witness.